Hi, I'm Michael. In this video, I'm gonna do these three things. First, set up a Firebase project. And the second, develop a Google sign-in page. And the third, update the UI based on the sign-in status. I implemented the logic by a React hook. So let's get started. First, I set up a Firebase project. This is pretty straightforward. I create the project following by an official document and then enable Google sign-in following by the official document. And then run npm command to install Firebase library. And at the time when I worked on this, the version of the Firebase library is 9. So it's a little bit different from the previous version. And the second, develop a Google sign-in page. I just decided to use the plain Firebase library to implement sign-in page. At first, I tried to use Next Firebase auth library, but ended up giving up using it. The reason why it was that I couldn't figure out how to set up using this, especially on the server side. And after I tried it, on my second thought, I noticed I didn't have a plan to use server-side rendering at first, and I couldn't figure out how to use it for a couple of hours, so I decided giving up it. And the challenges to develop sign-in page is like how to prepare a test account for Google OAuth. I think this is not only for Firebase. It's common to develop Google OAuth feature. And as far as I checked, there is no way to create a test account for Google OAuth. So, and the answer on some web services like Stack Overflow was that to create another account on Google for just testing OAuth. So I created the test account on there. Okay, then in terms of the codes, there are two important parts. First is to set up OAuth, and then second is to actually sign in. And for setting up OAuth and the provider, nothing is difficult. One thing we have to care is if you want to get the data more than email or the name from the Google, then we have to add the scope to the provider. And the details of the scope are written in the official document. So if you want to use them, please take a look. I don't need them. I didn't need them, so I didn't add any scope on my service so far. And then for the actual sign-in, Firebase provides some functions like signing with pop-up. So I use this function to allow sign-in by Google. It's pretty straightforward, nothing is difficult. And after using these functions with await, because this function is implemented with promising, we can fetch the user's data by these logics. And the third, updating UI based on the sign-in status. There are a few related UI and UX. These are not specific to my service, but they are common for web services. Most of web services, like changing a header based on whether user signs in or signs out, or related to a sign-in page if a user hasn't signed in but accesses an unauthorized page, like my page. And the challenges to me were to manage the state of a user's authentication status on the client side. Especially I'm not familiar with React so much, like React hooks or high-order components, but I need to use them to implement. So I spent time to look into them and figure out how to do them. So there are these are the related features provided by Firebase to manage the state of user's authentication on the client side. First is auth.currentUser, and this is the current user authenticated by using the Firebase function. But this current user cannot be used for initial loading because it's not loaded by Firebase yet. So in order to detect whether a user's data is fetched from Firebase or from local storage on the browser, I'm not sure which one, but anyway, we have to use on/off state changed function. And using this, we can trigger re-rendering a React component, like a header component or like a page to redirect to the another page. So using those functions, on/off state change it, and we render the React component if the user is loaded after Firebase. I implemented a React like this. I'm not sure this is the perfect solution or there is a flaw, but this is the current state. Basically, I define the use of React hook. And inside of this use of, I loaded on/off state change functions to trigger the user state. And then for the React component like header, I call this use of React hook. And if it's not logged in yet, then show the header for unauthorized user. And if user is signed in, then shows a header with authenticated user. Then in order to redirect your sign-in page if a user hasn't signed in yet, I think there are a few ways, but I design a high-order component and redirect to your sign-in page easily by just wrapping up Next.js page component with that function. And that function just uses the router and the auth designed in the previous page, and redirect only if auth is initialized, and even if auth is initialized but user is not authenticated, it redirects to sign-in page using the router of Next.js component. And we have to check auth is initialized because, as I said, during the first load or during the first rendering, the auth data is not initialized and is not loaded from probably Firebase. So this is a demo after the updates for today's topics. At first, I tried to change the UI to the mobile rather than desktop because it's more like harder to optimize the UI. So we should always check the mobile UI at first. But actually, I haven't checked it while I am developing it, so there is some flaws for the UI, like a header. But anyway, at first I tried to access the account page, but that page can only be seen when user logs in or user signs in. So I tried to sign in by Google, and then after signs in by Google, then it goes to the top page and the header shows the user's name. And the option changes from sign in to sign out on the right of the top bar, and then goes to the account page and sees the name and the email of the signed in user. And after this, I try to sign out, and then goes to the account page again. Because a user is not signed in, it redirects to sign in page. In next video, I'm gonna develop these two features. First, upload a video to the cloud storage with Firebase. And second, watch a video from the cloud storage with Firebase. There is a link to this slide in the description of this video. Thank you for watching my video. Bye.